One of China's most fascinating geographic features is the Sichuan Basin, a region distinct in its culture, history, and natural environment. It's a roughly 200-mile wide circular basin, mostly enclosed by high mountains through which the Yangtze River flows. Its fertile plains and rolling hills contrast sharply with the surrounding mountains, and oddly enough, winters are much milder here than they are farther down the Yangtze Valley. This is one of the few places on Earth where winter temperatures get more severe downriver, aside from rivers which flow in a poleward direction. Places like Wuhan and Nanjing are fully exposed to cold northerly winds, while the Sichuan Basin is largely protected by mountain ranges. The more exposed lower valley can only grow the most frost-tolerant citrus fruit, the mandarin, while the Sichuan Basin is a major producer of lemons and pomelos, the least cold-tolerant citrus. Ficus trees line the streets of Chongqing and sprout out of cracks in the walls, unlike in Wuhan. But what really sets the Sichuan Basin apart is sunlight, specifically the lack of it. Chongqing has less than half the annual sunshine hours of Anchorage, Alaska, despite being at the same latitude as Jacksonville, Florida. London, Berlin, and Moscow get substantially more sunshine. The semi-enclosed terrain encourages the formation of an inversion layer, and the wet ground provides plenty of moisture for thick fog to form. It's similar to the way fog forms in the Ebro Valley of Spain and the Central Valley of California. Fog envelops Chongqing for over 100 days per year, and low clouds are the norm on many of the other days. The combination of shelter from devastating cold air masses and high humidity is likely why this region has provided shelter for rare and strange species like the handkerchief tree and the dawn redwood. With one of the world's largest rivers running right through it, the basin has been able to trade with cities downriver for centuries, but not without great effort. Between the Sichuan Basin and the middle reaches of the river is a great gorge, which historically had rapids and swift currents. Men used to walk the shoreline with long ropes, pulling boats upriver through this treacherous stretch of the Yangtze. Small steamboats came later and could power themselves upriver, but only with extensive knowledge of the rocks, currents, and seasonal flow changes. The Three Gorges Dam, finished in the 21st century, submerged these rapids and allowed for a lock system to take enormous ocean-going vessels all the way up to Chongqing. These historic rapids may have seemed like a curse, but at times they were a blessing. In the late 1930s, Japanese invading forces used the Yangtze River as a route to dominate the interior. To a great extent, their success relied on their ships in the Yangtze. Their fleet gained complete control of the river in Wuhan and tenuous control of the river at Chiang, but they never attempted to ascend the Three Gorges. They didn't have the local knowledge of its currents and other hazards, and high terrain on all sides would make them easy targets. Inland from Chiang, the Japanese attack relied entirely on the air. But even from above, the Sichuan Basin was largely protected. The thick fog concealed targets, and low cloud cover made flying hazardous. Devastating bombings did occur, but they were limited by a blanket of fog and low clouds. As a result, the Sichuan Basin became China's castle, arguably the most important last defense against the Japanese. Other unoccupied territories tended to be mountainous or arid, and hence sparsely populated. People, industry, government, and scholarship all moved into cities like Chongqing. Like many other ancient basins, the Sichuan Basin also has coal, salt, iron ore, and limestone, all critical for industry. Coal mining here quadrupled throughout the war, and iron production increased sixfold. But it is important to note that this was a world war, an international struggle. Many lives were lost in the creation of the Burma Road, which linked British-occupied territory to Chongqing, allowing the Allies to supply the Chinese. It was severed from 1942 through most of 1944, however, and so a great deal of self-sufficiency was required for resistance. Geography has played a critical role in China's history, just as it has elsewhere. And to emphasize that is not to reduce human agency. Leveraging geography in a war effort is good strategy, not pure luck. And by remembering the role that rivers, mountains, and climate played in history, they connect us to the struggles of the past. Thanks for watching.